everyone, and welcome to the She Shoots podcast, Women Empowering Women in the Shooting Community, Season 4, Episode 38, Living Life Fully Loaded, celebrating International Women's Day. My name is Regina Ruiz Ordóñez, and I'm from the Canadian University Shooting Federation. And joining me today, as always, are my lovely co-hosts, Deneen Tomlin and Casey Gavinchuk from Lady Guns, and Kelly Melanson from Maple Seed Project, Sunfire Radio, and CCFR Women's Program. I'd like to start by thanking our sponsors, Cabela's Canada Outdoor Fund, positively shaping the future of the outdoors. Every cent donated by rounding up at checkout goes towards helping Canadian organizations just like ours. Beretta, family-owned and operated since 1526. Vortex, the best in optics, and Canada First Ammo. If you have any questions or comments throughout the show, make sure to leave them in the chat box below. So that's it for me. So on to Deneen and Kelly to introduce our guests for today.
Thank you very much, Regina, and good evening, everyone. Welcome to the royalty episode of She Shoots, because we are truly, I'm fangirl, and I'm going to be all weird tonight. We are in the presence of shooting royalty. We have the great honor of welcoming Julie Golob, one of the most decorated handgun shooting champions in the world, and a true inspiration for female shooters everywhere. Always a smile on your face, always time for everybody. And I get the honor, Julie, of reading a bio that is short enough that we can get going with the interview, but not nearly long enough to cover everything. So let me run through this, and then Kelly and I have got a whole bunch of fun questions to ask you for the show tonight. So Julie's one of the most accomplished professional shooters in the world, with more than 170 championship titles and top scores in international, national, and regional marksmanship competitions in 7 different shooting disciplines. I didn't even know there were 7. All right. So a veteran of the elite U.S. Army Marksmanship Unit. Her titles include top honors in Bianchi Cup, Steel Challenge, USPSA, IDPA, and IPSC competitions, as well as being named, no big deal, the U.S. Army Female Athlete of the Year. She's a recipient of the SHOT Business Person of the Year and a respected brand ambassador and a published author. She actively shares her passion for firearm safety, shooting sports, conservation, and hunting as an instructor, consultant, speaker, and content creator. Her books, Shoot, Your Guide to Shooting and Competition, is a comprehensive primer on shooting sports, and Toys, Tools, Guns, and Rules, a children's book about gun safety, is a useful tool for families and educators in teaching real firearm safety. As I mentioned, it's a brief cover of everything you've touched on, Julie. We are so excited to have you tonight. Welcome to the She Shoots podcast.
Thank you so much. I am honored to join you all. This is a lovely month, Women's History Month, celebrating International Women's Day. It's an honor and a pleasure.
Well, we're welcome to have you north. We're excited to have you, and you're welcome to come north of the border without having to leave the cab of your truck. So
there you go.
Exactly.
Yeah,
all
we
right.
are. Yep. So we are so excited to have you on tonight. As we said, it's International Women's Day month. We just had that this past weekend. So we did really want to actually bring you on and talk about all your accolades and that. But we're super excited because of the fact that, you're one of the most renowned and most well-spoken women out there that promotes women's shooting. And we're so super excited to have you on tonight. So thank you for coming on. So why don't we get into it a little bit? Why don't you tell us a little bit about your background? Now, Deneen did do a very brief summary on your biography, but tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you located? You are from the U.S. That's correct. But tell us how how do you spend your day? Where'd you grow up? A little bit more information about yourself.
Absolutely. I'm actually a New Yorker originally, so I grew up in upstate New York. I enjoyed the shooting sports with my father as a kid, and we had many of our Canadian neighbors come down and shoot with us for various different competitions. And it was really with that time with my dad, that exclusive daddy-daughter time, that I really started to discover the world of shooting, hunting, and competing. And so as a young girl, I was just, my dad's little helper on the range. And then eventually it sparked an interest in learning how to shoot and start competing with him as well in the sports of practical shooting. So that's kind of how I cut my teeth, so to speak. And what was really neat about it is that at the time, and it's not too uncommon today, we don't overwhelmingly have a huge presence of women in the shooting sports, right? But as a young girl growing up in the 90s, I was the only one at the range. There weren't many little girls to hang out with, and a handful of women. And it was those women that I learned to look up to. And I was just amazed that, wow, they're doing this too. If they can do it, I can do it. And that kind of just sparked everything and started that journey of eventually starting to shoot, compete, going to my first national championships, and then eventually being recruited to shoot for the U.S. Army.
Wow. Okay. So what did you start to shoot first? So you talked about going maybe a little bit of hunting, but what type of discipline did you start to shoot first or get into for competitive shooting?
So for hunting, I just hung out with dad shooting a shotgun, in upstate New
Yep.
York. But we were very actively involved in practical shooting, USPSA and IPSC. And so for me, my first shots with a handgun were with a single stack 45 that my dad downloaded super soft so that it barely recoiled. And it was the best choice for me at the time to get started with because it had a really thin grip and I could reach the trigger easily. And of course, having him being, behind the press, he could customize ammunition exactly the way I needed it. So that's kind of what started. And when I started shooting, I was obsessed with hitting the center every time. Like that was my ultimate goal. I didn't care how long it took, but by God, I was going to beat everyone in points. So that was my big thing. And then eventually I'm like, all right, I need to go a little faster here.
And how old were you, Julie, when your dad started doing those custom loads for you?
14. That was
Wow.
my first right when I was 14. So right at my birthday month, we jumped in and was able to shoot with a lot of great different clubs in New York State. A lot of people don't realize that there are many shooting clubs and many opportunities to shoot in states that are not necessarily pro-gun, so to speak.
Yeah.
The difference between Texas and New York or California and Missouri, they're pretty drastic, but there's still a lot of passionate people who just enjoy, shooting sports and, having fun with guns.
Yeah. What about actually? So you've been shooting since you're prior to 14. When did you first pick up a gun?
So I remember vaguely shooting with dad every now and again. I wasn't really that interested in it. I was
Okay.
more interested in helping him. Like I was his little spotter. I got to sit behind the spotting
Okay.
scope, and I would pick up brass, and people were like, "Oh, here's $1," kind of thing. So they appreciated me for sure. But it wasn't until basically that 1991, that winter, I decided that I wanted to start competing. So we spent months at an indoor range facility, just becoming familiar with safe gun handling skills and the basics of firearms marksmanship, so that when I was ready to shoot my first match, I had a good foundation of at least how to be safe. And that was ultimately the goal. Is that dad always said, hey, be safe, have fun. Those are the only two things we care about here. And he was also an educator. So being a band director and being a teacher for so many years, to young kids, grades 4 through high school seniors. He really had a good handle on how to get results with kids that were effective and keep them motivated. So he was, he was my best friend, my best shooting bud.
Aww.
So dad was your first mentor and your first instructor.
Yes.
And so you started at 14, and we talked a little bit about that. And I know we've got so much to go through tonight. So I want to fast forward, if it's okay, just to somebody named Sergeant Julie Golob. Let's talk about her for a little bit.
Yes. So my maiden name is Golob. My married name is Golob. Starting shooting with dad, we started competing together. We were a range officer team. We traveled all over basically the northeastern half of the United States, or quarter of the United States. And I had this dream. I had this dream of becoming a pro shooter, and I had so many great mentors. Our local club hosted a match called the Miller Invitational, which was one of the biggest competitions leading up to the USPSA Nationals back then. And so I worked it every year, and I had a front row seat as a range officer to see some of the best lady shooters ever. And it just so happened that one of them was also at our club. Sheila Bray was the first lady to ever make USPSA Master. And so I got to watch her every single time I went to a club match. And it really sparked an interest so that I eventually went to my first nationals in 1994, caught the attention of the Army Marksmanship Unit. They gave me a letter of acceptance to the Army and the shooting team. And so I came home from that nationals and said, "Hey, Mom, Dad, I'm joining the Army." They were not ready for that one because I
Right.
went on my own with friends and I with Sheila, in fact. And so that was an eye-opening thing for them, I'm sure. As a
Yeah.
parent now, I'm like, oh my gosh, well, how did my parents ever let me do these things?
Right. I can only imagine. But it's an interesting path to go from
Yeah.
brass picker upper and daddy spotter to joining the Army and joining that team. So I mean that's already super exciting, and we've got so much more to talk about. So where was your home club? Where was that you're talking about that you were
Fulton,
shooting
New
from?
York. Yeah, Fulton, New York. Pathfinder Fish and Game. They're still running matches up there, and it's really neat. I have a few old timers that still stay in touch, and it's always nice to hear from them.
Nice. Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Can you tell us how old you were when you did get into the military?
Right out of high school.
Right out of high
I
school.
had to
Okay.
wait till I was 18. My birthday is at the end of June, so I had to turn the right age, but I actually signed up as a junior, so I was ready to go. I made that decision. Gave me a little bit of senioritis as a senior in high school. I wasn't that motivated to do much, but because I knew where I was going and what I wanted to do, and so I signed up to be in the military for 5 years, and my job, my MOS, was military police.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much for doing that as well. Your service to your country
Yes.
and you were able to actually continue with your practicing your shooting too. It sounds like as well, be proficient in your professional as well as your competitive. Did you still compete when you were in the military as well?
That was my job in the military. So I, went straight from basic training and
Okay.
my job school to the Army Marksmanship Unit, where my mission was
Was
literally compete and win. So
perfect.
it put a little bit of a spin on it, because before it was
Mhm.
just having fun with dad, and then obviously in the military things are a little different than just having
Right.
fun with dad.
And what were the disciplines, and what firearms were you using for those disciplines?
So this is back in the late 90s, mid to late 90s. So primarily shooting USPSA, IPSC, and Steel Challenge in open divisions. And then that was that time frame where they started a secondary division, limited division. That was kind of the beginning of it all, because up until that point, it was one division to rule them essentially. So so I shot mostly open with a high capacity, 1911 style pistol with a red dot, and then that version of it without a compensator and iron sights in the limited division.
And those are military issue for your competitions?
No.
No.
The Army Marksmanship Unit did supply firearms if you didn't own them, but I eventually purchased my own and used my own guns to compete with as well.
You got to bring your own
Might
toys
as
to work.
well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Outstanding.
Yeah, it sounds like you had the perfect job. Let's be real.
I did paint a few rocks. But I think the military today in general is a kinder, gentler military than it was when I was in. I certainly learned a lot about leadership and difficulty and challenges. But I'm so grateful for every bit of it. I mean, there was one year that I shot 100,000 rounds. And that kind of opportunity to be able to shoot that much and have it be your full-time job, everything about what you're doing is to compete. It was an invaluable experience, and I rely on it even today.
And to keep it fun and not have your job become something terribly boring and work. So that's awesome too, because if you love what you do, it's not work, right?
Yes.
Amazing. So
No.
where are you now as far as shooting and training? Because you're not in New York anymore.
No.
Oh gosh, no. I've lived all over. I lived for a brief time. I was stationed at Fort Benning, Georgia. When I got out of the military after 8 years, I worked for Glock that is located in Smyrna, Georgia.
Smyrna. Yep.
And then Smith & Wesson, my wonderful sponsor, even now, stole me away, and I moved up to work in their factory in Massachusetts, and eventually I became an ambassador, so I didn't need to stay at the factory. And I moved around with my husband, and right now, of all the places, we're in Kansas City.
Wonderful.
And so you've got a local club in Kansas City that you get to practice at then on a regular?
Yeah, there's lots of good shooting in this area. Plus, I have a home range as well. It's kind of a job requirement, so to speak, to be able, if you're going to spend as much time as I do without interruptions and be able to be focused, it's really difficult to do that at a public range at times. Not knocking public ranges because they're amazing, but sometimes you just need to be not distracted.
Yeah, you need your own space and your own time. Can you tell us a little bit about sorry, can't talk tonight. Can you tell us a little bit about you said you need the time, the space to practice. Tell us about your practice. What's your routine like and what's your training like right now?
Yeah, so I am actually in just easing into my training plan for the season. What I do in the wintertime is I take a look at the schedule and I kind of plan my year accordingly. It's really important when you're chasing very specific goals that you set yourself up for success. So overtraining in January doesn't help you win a nationals in May. So I kind of plan my training sessions based on areas that I need to work on. I'm a big fan of that. I don't tend to practice the things that I do very well as much. I really like to focus on my weaknesses. We all have them. And so that's where I spend a lot of that time. Also in the down season, I will spend a lot of time with my gear, making sure that it is ready to go for the next season, making sure my backup gun is good, make sure I have everything I need as far as ammo and other supplies so that I am not panicking in the middle of the season because I don't have enough ammunition or something's not going right and I have malfunctions. I have everything in place. So for now, it's just a matter of getting refamiliar with the idea, getting the juices flowing again, accepting that I'm going to make mistakes, coming up with a plan to fix them, and really be taking it gradually. I feel like a lot of people, when they get into shooting sports, especially after a break, go so gung-ho. That's a really easy time to get injured. It's a really easy time to lose interest because you kind of have a hard time, you struggle, you don't give yourself some grace. So that's how I handle it.
Good mental attitude. Can you tell us about what your setup is? What do you use for? You were talking about the fact that Sig is your sponsor. Do you want to tell us about what you have you use for your primary gun, and then also what ammo that you use as well?
Absolutely. So I'm primarily, as far as competing, I shoot a Smith & Wesson 9mm 1911.
Right.
And I have a Trijicon MRO on top. It's a very space age looking gun. It's purpose built for action pistol, which is a precision meets speed kind of sport, precision heavy. I feed it with Federal ammunition components, and it's a tack driver. It's fun to be able to have a gun that is so accurate. We shoot out to 50 yards with a handgun, and we have some pretty tight constraints to do it. But when you have a machine like that, it's almost like driving on a racetrack with a really expensive Porsche or something. So you get to see exactly what you're capable of, which is exciting.
Nice.
And because you worked with Smith & Wesson, did you get a chance to work on that gun or design elements of that gun or anything to do with personalizing it?
No, I mean, it is highly custom to me. Smith & Wesson is a massive manufacturer, and so with custom work like that, at one point in time, the Performance Center did do like custom firearms, but now that's not the case. It's just the market isn't for that. So basically, I will take a stock Smith & Wesson and then have a gunsmith customize it exactly the way I want to.
What are you shooting for, ammo as well?
Federal. Yeah, I'm
Are
a
you?
federal girl, federal ammunition. Yeah, I've been with them for, gosh, over 10 years, and they make
Wow.
great hunting ammo, great, 22 ammo for planking, and of course target shooting stuff. So I'm a big fan.
Well, it sounds like you have some really great sponsors. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your sponsors?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So as I mentioned, I'm a Smith & Wesson ambassador, which is a really cool honor. The funny thing is, they were my very first gun sponsor as a junior competitor.
Oh,
So when I
really?
started shooting at 14, after a couple of years, I met, a regional manager who was like, "You got something, kid," and they sponsored me. The Performance Center sponsored me with a firearm that I still have, and eventually, when I joined the military, of course, that sponsorship wasn't an option. I had the U.S. government as a sponsor essentially.
Mhm.
And then when I got out, it's funny how things come full circle, and being able to represent Smith & Wesson now is fun. And I've been with them for a long time, a couple decades, so it's pretty neat. And then as far as optics, I use Trijicon optics, both red dots and scopes, so that's really cool. And then federal ammunition, I also work closely with Filster, which is a concealed carry company, CCW Safe, which is a membership organization for concealed carry as well. And also American Outdoor Brands for things like Caldwell targets and Tipton gun cleaning and Wheeler tools, all that stuff. So I'm very, very fortunate that I have the boxes covered so that I'm able to put everything together and hopefully perform well with it.
Sounds like a super good setup. So you just talked about performing well. We've talked about on season versus off season, and so what are your goals going into this next shooting season, Julie? What are you ramping up for?
Yeah, so it's a big year. We have a nationals every year called the Bianchi Cup that's the sport I primarily focus on at this point. And I have never shot a perfect score in a major competition. So that is my goal this season. There are 192 shots in action pistol, and it has, a 10 ring and an X ring, and the best of the best can shoot 192 shots in that middle every time with a score of 1920. So that is what I want to do. I want to be the first woman to do that in a registered competition. So that's my goal. I've come close.
Yeah.
I've shot a 1916 and a 1914 and all that. So it's doable. That's my goal.
Good goal.
That's a good goal. That's a crazy goal. We're behind you all the way, Julie.
Yeah.
I like fans. I'll take cheerleaders all the time.
Well, that's I'm big fan. I think you've got 4 big fans with you on the line for sure, and a bunch watching tonight. So let's talk a little bit about that, the shooting community.
Yeah.
Let's talk about because you're with a bunch of groups, you support a bunch of groups, and you've become part of the fabric of the shooting community for many, many years. So who are you part of? And then just tell us, from your heart, what's the shooting community mean to you?
I feel like the biggest takeaway that I can say about shooters and the shooting community is it's like a family, like a big extended family. And it wasn't that I just wanted to compete and dominate when I was a kid. When I first, learned about shooting sports, I was so inspired by the people in them. And I had so many people who were in my corner, who were cheering me on. And I've traveled all over the world on 6 continents, and I've met the best people. And because of that, it's given me such an appreciation for the sport, and then the opportunity to work within the industry itself as a woman is just an absolute honor. So I feel like any way that I can give back is very, very rewarding, whether it's, serving on an advisory board or working with a conservation group or, promoting firearm safety with things like Project Child Safe. It's very, very, it's worthwhile. It makes me feel like, I don't want to say like I'm an old timer, but it feels like I'm in that contributing way of helping the sport and the industry grow. So it's rewarding.
So you talked about traveling all over the world. Can you tell us about some of your most favorite memories, about some of the most favorite shoots maybe as well?
It's crazy. Like when I think back on the places that I've been and the people that I've met, it just blows my mind. I've been to Moscow, Russia for matches. I've been obviously Greece, Africa for world shoots for IPSC. I've traveled a lot through Central and South America. A funny story, I've even shot a match in Israel where a dentist lent me his pistol and he used a gold tooth for the magazine release button. Like, this is crazy stuff. Like, this was before social media, before we had cameras in our phones. Like, if all the things I wish I had was a picture of that guy's gun, it was a little bizarre every time you started to reload. But it's really neat. And I just enjoy the cultures, experience the different ways that people live and eat, and it's been so much fun.
It sounds like everybody, the different cultures, but there was something that was in common as well. It was shooting.
Yeah, it's when you watch the Olympics on TV or something like that, you're like, wow, this is such a really neat thing. I don't know if I'll ever get to experience that in my life. Well, I'll tell you what, if you get involved in the shooting sports and you start to travel internationally, you don't even have to be a national level shooter or a champion level shooter. You're going to have that amazing experience of being able to connect with so many people from different walks of life, from different areas of the world. It's really neat.
Wonderful.
I love that. And alongside all of those experiences, you've also been recognized with a number of awards outside of all of those titles that you've won. And you recently were awarded something called a Gundy at the SHOT Show in January.
Yes.
And so 2 questions. First off, share with everybody, what is the Gundy and what did you win? But the other is, of your awards, which ones really stand out and mean something?
Sure.
To you?
I'm going to turn on my light here because it's getting dark. We're losing some time, so I'm going to become illuminated. I hope, anyway. But the Gundy Awards is basically an industry social media type award event that a marketing group put together to celebrate various different influencers in the shooting community. So, whoa, that's a little bright. So basically, the Gundys recognizes different categories of shooters and hunters and communicators. And so, for example, they have a best shooter category. And so I was nominated for most influential female among a lot of incredibly talented YouTubers and podcasters, women in the industry who have a great voice. And I was able to bring that home. And so it was really, really a cool experience because I'm not a typical influencer, so to say. You know, when you look at social media, when you pull up the gram or Facebook or even YouTube, there's definitely people who make that their job. And so to be a competitive shooter and to be an advocate for gun ownership and all of that, it's in a different way. It was really, really neat. Plus, it's a People's Choice Award, so it means that people care. They like me. It's good to be liked.
Congratulations. It was a well-earned award, and we were really excited to we chatted about it right after SHOT Show because we were trying to figure out who we were going to invite, and we were like, we got to get Julie. She won the Gundy and she's amazing. So
thank you.
You're very welcome. So outside of that, tell us about something that you've been recognized for that really means something to you in a different way.
Sure. You know, I think there's that one hallmark moment of, being named the 1999 U.S. Army Female Athlete of the Year. That was such a huge thing because it's one thing to be recognized in your sport, but it's another thing to be recognized by something like the Army. Out of all of the athletes in the Army, I was chosen for that honor. And I got to go to DC. I met with, generals and admirals. I got to do a press conference. My dad was there. It was just a wonderful experience. And I think it really made it special because even though I was a soldier at the Army Marksmanship Unit shooting for the Army Action Shooting Team, the AMU itself was very Olympic focused. And so to be able to have had a stunning competition year, winning nearly everything I shot, and then having that be recognized by the military, it was like coming home to the Army Marksmanship Unit and having all sorts of validation. So it was really, really motivated and very, very, very special. So that being the first big one, that was a really big year for me. It's always going to have a special place for me.
Absolutely. Thank you for pointing that out, because I've read that one numerous times, but I didn't really register that it was athlete, not shooter. It was athlete. So I love that you separated that, because it is considerable, considering all the different levels of athleticism that they have in the military. So thank you for sharing that with us. That's very, very cool.
Why don't we get into talking about your two books? Now you have they're very different. They're very different. But in listening to you, I can see why you wrote maybe these books. But let's talk about them a little bit. So the first book, what was the first book that you did write?
It's called Shoot, Your Guide to Shooting in Competition.
Okay. So you wrote that one first.
Yep.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about it? And again, why did you actually write it for people to read?
Yeah. It's funny because one of the things I've always enjoyed is writing. I always wanted to write a book. I always wanted to be an author. I just never thought that my life path would go that way. But at the time, we're talking the beginning of social media, and YouTube is really starting to take off, but it wasn't the same kind of, gosh, you can learn how to do anything on YouTube today, literally anything. So there weren't the resources out there for a lot of people to learn about the different shooting sports. So I was approached by a book agent and a publishing company to write a primer on how to get started on shooting sports. And it was really like, oh, thank goodness, because I'm so tired of trying to cram this into every email. Hey, Julie, how do I get started in shooting sports? Right. So this was like, hey, I have a book for that. And so it worked out really, really well. And it jumps into the different types of shooting sports, whether it's precision or speed-based, or a little bit of both, whether it's rifle or shotgun or handgun or all three or a combination of two. And it just kind of gives a basic idea of what you need to do, your knowledge, and how to prepare to shoot a shooting sport, as well as the different disciplines out there that are available. And so it was a really great experience learning how the publishing industry works, and to be able to put that out there. I mean, when you go into a Barnes and Noble and you see your book on the shelf, it's a really, really cool thing. So being able to share that with so many people is pretty cool. It's out of print now because it was written so many years ago, and gosh, the shooting sports have changed so much since then. But it is available online through like Kindle and that sort of thing.
Are you thinking about doing a new edition of it?
It's crossed my mind. It has. Except now, I mean, literally, there's so much information out there on YouTube and on so many websites. I mean, look at the work that you guys are doing to share safe, responsible shooting sports and gun ownership. So, I don't know as if I really need to come out with an updated book, because there's so many excellent at your fingertip resources out there. But at the time, it really did well. So
I think people would still be interested in hearing from you and reading your book. Let's talk about the other book too. So the other book is called Toys, Tools, Guns, and Rules. It's the children's book. Your father was somebody who was a teacher and taught you about gun safety as a child. So was that something that triggered this for you? Something that you wanted to
definitely, yeah. I mean, my parents, they set such a great example for us kids, in that they were always, I mean, I'm Gen X, so they were strict about a lot of things and didn't care about other things, right? Let's be honest. But when it came to firearms and firearm safety, whenever I had a question or my siblings had a question, they stopped and answered it, which was wonderful. And I knew that having children myself, being a mother, that would be very, very important. My husband and I both feel very strongly that knowledge is power, right? And demystifying guns is a really productive way to ensure that kids do the right thing. And so one of the reasons why I wrote Toys, Tools, Guns, and Rules is that I wanted a resource for my own daughter to be able to read a book about firearm safety that wasn't politicized, that was human. It was very important for me. I didn't want a cartoon character or an animal or anything else teaching gun safety. I wanted it to be as real as possible, and to dive into more details of the parts of a firearm, the things that you don't touch. Not only do we share the universal message of stop, don't touch, go get a trusted adult, but I wanted to give them enough information to kind of discourage that curiosity. And then, of course, at the end, I wanted to include some parent resources as well. So it was great because my daughter, by the time it all came out, she was a little older. And then my second daughter came around. It was just this perfect thing because my oldest daughter could read to my younger daughter, which was neat.
Oh, fantastic.
Perfect.
Now,
Yeah.
and is that one still in print and in circulation?
Yes, it is.
And is it used by educators by chance?
So it's in several libraries. I know of several libraries that have it out there. It's one of those delicate situations, right? Like, I'm always hesitant to push it too hard because I'd rather people have the opportunity to find it and share it with their children or share it with others. What's really cool is there is a children's hospital in Texas that actually gives it away as a free resource for parents. So I have a Spanish version and an English version, and we've donated, almost 10,000 copies of it over the years to people who are looking for a resource to make sure their kids stay safe. And so that really makes me feel I'm very proud of that, to be able to share that with people. And you can also download it on Kindle Unlimited for free. So it's not like I'm out there like, oh, go buy my book, kind of thing.
It'd be
really
nice.
meant out there to be there. It is useful, but it's not. That's not the goal. I'd rather it circulate around and share that important message than anything.
I think. Oh,
go ahead. Sorry, Janine.
I was just going to ask a question. We talked about this when we had our meet and greet a week ago. Obviously, Canada and the US are different with gun laws and gun rules. But at the end of the day, when it comes to parenting and kids and guns and safety, we all start from the same place. It's about knowledge. Knowledge is power. It's about safety. So is your book something that would also work well in other countries?
Oh, absolutely. As I mentioned, it's written in both English and Spanish. And I appreciate that you bring this up. It doesn't matter if you live in the United States or you live in a country that doesn't allow gun ownership at all. The risk that you take when your children aren't aware of what to do around a firearm is very, very real. And you want to be that trusted person they go to find the answers to keep them safe. And so the book isn't political. It doesn't jump into any, this is what you should do or shouldn't do as far as a political sense of gun ownership. It's just the reality that they're out there. And so that you have to be that first person that your kids come to get this information.
Yeah.
Thank you. I think that's outstanding. I mean, there's nothing that is, or how should I put this? It's always on the media. It's always in movies. And so there's nothing in those movies that help children understand anything to do with gun safety. So, so thank you for that. Sorry, Kelly.
No, I know that you had mentioned it a little earlier in the podcast, Child Safe. Do you want to talk about that just a little bit? Something that you're involved in as well?
Yeah, Project Child Safe is a program from the National Shooting Sports Foundation here in the U.S. They are basically the industry's main kind of group that advocates for gun companies and the firearms industry in general in Washington politically. But they also have a lot of great programs. So it's because of the NSSF's work that every time you purchase a new firearm from a dealer in the United States, it comes with a gun log. So it's a really great program that promotes safe storage and resources for parents. It connects with police departments and sheriff's departments all around the United States, so that if you have a firearm, you have a way, you have knowledge, you have resources, and you have a physical way to safely store your firearm.
That's wonderful. Yeah, absolutely. Tell us a little bit about you did talk about your mentors. I know your father was one of them, and some of your instructors, because we do want to actually move forward a little bit with some of the things that we're talking about, but we want to still remember those people who've meant so much to you. So who are your mentors? Who are your instructors? And what types of advice have they given you that is most memorable to you or was most important to your career?
Yeah, sure. So, obviously, my dad it was that foundational person that I really learned a lot from, especially with firearm safety. Sheila Bray, I mentioned, First Lady Master. Kay Michalik, who is the spouse of Jerry Michalik, undeniably the best revolver shooter that has ever lived. He is also a Smith & Wesson teammate. Another really great mentor power couple for me, is Rob Latham and his wife Kippy Latham. Rob Latham is called the TGO, the great one in USPSA and IPSC shooting sports. And what I've always appreciated about Rob, I mean, he's a big guy. He's 6 foot, whatever, 200 pounds, I learned more about shooting from Rob, being someone smaller, and he taught me so much about respecting who I was and my hand size and my mass behind the gun and what I was capable of. I mean, when you find an instructor that has that level of understanding, that level of empathy, and is able to give you the tools with which to succeed, I think that was the biggest epiphany moment for me when I was shooting for the Army, getting to shoot with Rob and him telling me, stop trying to shoot like a 200-pound man. This is not going to work for you. This is what we'll do instead. It changed everything, everything. And so I'm very grateful. And of course, his wife, Kippy, is a national champion, renowned shooter, also a shooting instructor. And I just look up to them so much.
Some great
Thank
advice.
you for sharing that.
Yeah.
It is. I love that advice because that's like a light bulb moment, right? Because we're always trying to fit ourselves behind guns that come off the assembly line, typically for a man, a larger frame, a larger hand, and so it's amazing to think about it from that perspective. Don't try and shoot like a big giant dude, and there are ways around it. So I love that. I'm taking that away. I'm writing it down.
Okay. And I think there's another point here that I really want to stress. And obviously, this is, women empowering women in shooting and everything else. And there are so many amazing female instructors out there. But we also must recognize that there are so many great men who teach with patience and empathy and have knowledge that we all learn from. So, it's you have to have the heart of a student to really get the best from anyone that you're trying to learn from.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. What about you? Do you mentor or coach people as well?
Every now and again, I will find a young person to take under the wing for a short amount of time. I certainly encourage my daughters as well, although I'm not cool. So it's a challenge with that one. Mom is never right about anything.
No.
But I think that growing up in the shooting community and getting to meet so many people, and again, I've mentioned their names, but having them, being willing to be so helpful, I think it's just natural. Everybody does it anyway. So if I see somebody that's really struggling in a competition, I would say, hey, it's just a match. You just forget about it, move on to the next one. Or, oh my gosh, you're having a problem with your magazine. Here, take one of mine. That sort of thing. It's just the way it is. So it's really cool.
It's truly the best sport, isn't it? Everybody is so supportive of each other.
Yeah,
it is. Yeah. I want to have a little chat just between us girls for a second. You mentioned the Michalik family, and
yes.
I've had the pleasure of meeting all of them, and but I've never had the pleasure of shooting with them, nor would I qualify to be on the line with any of them. But that said, I've seen some amazing outtakes and some fun things. Speaking of father-daughter relationships, do you have any little things to share amongst us girls about funny things between those guys?
Oh my gosh, the Michaliks are amazing. Well, first of all, they're when you look at Jerry, he's just hilarious, and he's so knowledgeable, and the things that come out of his mouth, they're just amazing. Kay is hardcore. Kay is a tough love kind of woman, and she's tiny, right? She's one of these women that you look at and you're like, wow, okay, but she is tough as nails, and it gives you perspective. It's not in a way that's that you feel like she's going to scold you. It's like, hey, if I can do this, you can do this, and you're gonna do it kind of feeling. And I feel like Lena has just benefited from that the two of them and their different styles and their different ways of doing everything. So obviously she's incredibly talented. I will share this. I have seen Jerry in a hula skirt at a ladies shooting camp once because he could not resist the women who made him dance with a hula skirt.
Oh, that's awesome.
Right.
So that was a lot of fun. I have a picture somewhere, but he'll probably deny it. Yeah, he'll probably say it's AI or something.
Of course.
I'd
Thank
pay
you
to
for
see
sharing
that.
I love, we talked about family, and that's one of those shooting families that just, they do such a great job as shooters, obviously, but as representing the sport, as representing it as a family sport and having fun. They just seem to always be having fun.
Definitely. Definitely.
Can we talk a little bit about families? I know that you're a mom.
Yeah.
And you've talked about your children. You're also a businesswoman as well. And I know that you're a professional shooter. So how do you balance all of that?
So it took a while to figure it all out. When I first had my first daughter, I just assumed I would be able to jump back into everything and everything would be the same. I didn't take into account my body changed, my outlook changed, my life had drastically changed. And so I had to learn the important lesson of giving myself some grace and to prioritize things. And so I am a meticulous planner. I have a bullet journal schedule kind of thing that I adhere to. And I recognize okay, my children need this. My husband needs this. I need this. This is what I want to do professionally. These are some goals that I have, and I try to figure out how to mix it all together with the understanding that sometimes things just aren't going to happen the way you want it to. And you have to just make the best of it. And so for me, family is always first. And that's one of the reasons I love working with the sponsors that I do get to work with, because they share those same values. And it makes it really good. I'm sorry if there's a lot of noise outside. I don't know if you can hear it. Okay, good. There's a lot of revving up action from the peanut gallery.
It's great that you actually have been able to figure that out. I think that a lot of people want everything all at once and at the same time. So it sounds like you're prioritizing your family, but you also have those you do have the balance. And I see that you did take some time off to be with your family and then coming back into the sport as well. You had some realistic goals and you were able to get quite quickly back into shooting as well. And you're right back where you were prior to actually taking that break. So it sounds like you have been able to find that perfect balance.
It's been very fortunate, and I've certainly had my failures. And I think that, it's a little different for me because shooting is my job, right? There's so much about that. I would stress to the women listening, shooting should be something rewarding for you. It should be either something you enjoy or something that makes you feel accomplished or makes you feel competent, gives you confidence, all of those things. And if you're not in that place mentally, it's okay to take some time off, but it's also a gift to give yourself, that level of focus. I don't know about you, but when I'm shooting, I can't think about a million different things. There's the trigger, there's the sights, and there's the target, right? That's what I need to focus on. And I think that's one of the reasons I'm drawn to it so much, is because I can turn everything off, literally put muffs on and just focus on what I need to in front of me. And I think that's a huge benefit for a lot of people.
I couldn't agree with you more. And Casey made a t-shirt for us at Lady Guns that said, "This is my yoga," and it has a picture of a gun. And it was because we found that when we would take ladies out shooting after a round of sporting clays or, a couple of hours at the range, plink and steel, they were so relaxed and they would be like, "Why do I feel this way?" You weren't thinking about kids. You weren't thinking about groceries. You weren't worried about anything. You got to focus on yourself. So I couldn't agree with you more. It is a lovely, lovely way to have some alone time.
Self-care.
But with people you like. What's that? I'm sorry, I missed that.
Self-care. Shooting is self-care.
That's right. That's right. Exactly. So.
Yep. Shooting should be part of your self-care, should be part of your balance, something you can do with friends or by yourself. And I know that when I go to the range, I feel so much better after, either busting some clays or, blowing apart a paper target or shooting steel. It's all so much fun.
Yeah.
It's part of, it should be part of your balance. Yeah. Yeah. So I have to ask you about your experience with shooting with other women in the shooting sports. How has it been?
Oh, it's been great. I feel like men are the instigators of women not getting along. I'm just going to say that since this is girl talk, right?
Okay.
Any type of relationship that I have felt tension with women on the range, there's always a man behind it, right?
Yeah.
But it's amazing. It's like a sisterhood in many ways. Yes, it's competitive. Yes, it's camaraderie. Yes, it's a lot of complex things, just like the relationships you have with your sisters, right? But at the end of the day, it's such a celebration. Everybody, is so excited to see a woman do well, one of the people they're connected with do well. And I love being a part of that and to be able to share it with others. I feel sometimes that women maybe, especially when I'm shooting with smaller groups, they may feel intimidated or feel like, oh, well, I can't shoot with you because, you're a national champion, whatever. And that's never about that. I miss plenty of times. So it's not about that, and it shouldn't be about that. It's not a competition. It's something that we can share. And for the most part, once you get over those that little bit of nerves, I mean, some of my best, female friends, most of my best female friends are shooters. So it's awesome.
I always see us cheering each other on too. It's almost like when we bring a guy out and they're going, this is like, I don't know, like cheerleaders. We're cheering. You never see group guys cheering each other on. Like,
very rarely.
Whoa.
Very rarely. Yeah. I think the only time I've ever seen that happen is like with an international shoot off where it's country versus country kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then it's not really like they're cheering the guy on. They're just like, go USA or go Canada. So it's one of those things.
Yeah. So wonderful shooting with other women as well. The experiences is great. Yeah. What about you're somebody who's very influential. I just have to say, like as Deneen said at the beginning of the show, like we're fangirling all over the place right now. You're very influential. Is there anybody that has been influential for you? Any other women?
Oh my gosh, so many. I have the unique pleasure and honor of connecting with so many women leaders in the industry. So we have several shooting groups in the United States: A Girl and a Gun, American Armed Women, Shoot Like a Girl, that are run by women. Smith and Wesson, we have executives and our staff, and at the leadership levels. I get to work with women everywhere, and that inspires me, because they have a passion that may be a little bit different than mine, but they're lending their talents and they're making everything better. And so I always appreciate that. The hard workers who make clubs work, behind the scenes, the range officers, all of that. I think that when you have a level of gratitude, contentment, and appreciation for everybody that makes things possible, you can learn so much. And so for me, every time I go to a major match, I think of all of the people who can make that happen. From the people who are making the ammunition in factories to the people who are, responsible for the firearms that are used on the range to the volunteers. It's all a big team.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm just writing these things, these lovely sound bites: gratitude, contentment, and satisfaction. I love that because sometimes we're so busy going forward, we don't take that moment to pause and reflect and appreciate and recognize that we are content doing something that we worked hard to get there for, whatever it may be, a weekend shoot or plinking or a competition. So yes, I just keep writing down these little sound bites that you're dropping. So thank you very much for that. So women and mentors and women in the shooting sports, She Shoots has a couple of different sort of categories. And as much as we've interviewed women that shoot, we've also interviewed women that are behind the scenes, women that run associations, women that are working in the marketing department or on the shop floor for the manufacturers, and there are a lot of fantastic women in the industry and in the community. So that said, Julie, what do you suggest, or what would you say needs to be done to get more women out in the shooting sports, the shooting industry, and participating in this family that we're talking about?
I think we continue to do what we do. I mean, obviously, your great work here is just encouraging and welcoming. There are more and more of us every day, and that's great. And companies are listening, and ranges are listening, and people behind the desk at gun shops are listening. And when we make it a point to connect with fellow women and encourage them on a personal level, or even online through our presence on social media. It doesn't have to be like Fight Club. You can share it, right? And I think that's a really great way to keep that momentum going. I look at how far we've come in 30 years since I've been involved with the shooting sports, and it's amazing. And I can't wait to see where we are 10 years from now.
I think those are some great words of advice, and what I love, I think the most, is keep doing what we're doing, because we're winning. We are winning, and it's and more women are certainly getting involved, and and doing things like this. We have all the social media, all the platforms, and ways to connect with each other that we didn't have before. So my last question for you that I can think of right now is, why is it so important that women are in this industry?
So I feel like, anytime you can do something outside of the box, something that challenges you, something that you didn't think you could do before, you grow in ways that it just affects your life in every single way. And so, shooting and guns, firearms ownership, has been such a typically male thing for so long. We've had our, the great Annie Oakley and mentors along the way that have, sparked interest and have inspired us. But being involved now, you're taking a step in learning how to do something that you never thought you could do. It's kind of like driving, right? Shooting is like driving. As long as you have the training, the knowledge, and spend the time at it, you can be competent, right? And you don't have to be a NASCAR driver to enjoy it. And so the more things that we do as women that challenge us, 100 years ago, it was learning to drive, or maybe not 100, but you know what I mean. Or maybe it's learning to ride a motorcycle, or learning how to operate a chainsaw, stepping outside of your comfort zone. And I'm biased, but I think shooting's one of the best way to do that, because it is so safe. It is so welcoming. There's such a wonderful community that I feel like it's so worthwhile.
I love that. Thank you so much, Julie. And I love the empowerment, and it like whether it's a gun or a chainsaw. So I think that, and some days they've kind of felt like the same thing, but it's great. Kelly, what are your last thoughts with our friend Julie?
Julie, you're all over the place on social media. Are you able to advise us of where people can connect with you, or how they can reach out to you if they're looking to reach out to you?
Yeah, absolutely. You can find me basically with my name at JuliGolob, or you can go to my website, juliegolob.com, that has all of my social media links there. And please reach out, connect. I love connecting with fellow ladies in the shooting community.
Well, and do you still do your newsletter as well, Julie?
I do. I've moved it to Substack, so that's another option. If you just search for my name there, fortunately it's very short, even if it is a little hard to pronounce or spell. But yeah, you can find a lot of that information right on Substack, and that on my website as well.
That's
wonderful.
Perfect.
And for anybody who's watching who hasn't been to your YouTube channel, not only do you have tips and tricks and recommendations and kit reviews and everything, but any of the stuff we didn't get a chance to touch on. I know there are some personal moments with you in various different interviews, so I recommend people to go check that out and learn more about Julie.
Thanks so much.
Absolutely. It's been an absolute pleasure having you share and recognize International Women's Day with us at She Shoots. And hopefully sometime we'll get a chance to have a conversation in person and pick this up where we left off. So I think we need, there she is. Rahina's going to jump back in and take care of business.
Awesome.
Okay. Thank you, ladies. Thank you again, Julie, for being here with us today. Oh, the lights just went. I just got a little darker. Okay. Well, anyways, so it doesn't look like we got any questions in on the chat today. Actually, there's a comment that just popped up. Let's push it.
Thanks, Carla.
Yeah, so just a reminder to our listeners, if you do want to interact with our guest, you can listen to us live on the Facebook or on YouTube, and you can comment through there, and then we'll ask the questions to our guest directly, so you can get instant answers to your questions. So that's always an option. So that being said, I will move on to our housekeeping.
Yep.
If I can find it. Okay. So as we all know, we're celebrating International Women's Day. It was on March 8th, which is this past Saturday. So to celebrate that, we had 2 shoots. So we had one in Ontario with the University of York Club, and that happened exactly on March 8th. So it happened this past weekend. And we had one in BC on March 1st with the Simon Fraser Club as well. So we will try to share as many pictures and videos as we can through our social media pages throughout the coming days. So make sure you keep an eye on those if you want to see what we were up to over those 2 weekends. And then moving on, we did create targets to celebrate International Women's Day. We just missed the deadline on when we were going to post them. So we're actually going to post them right at the end of the podcast today. So you can print them out at home and take them to your local range so you can shoot them. So make sure you take pictures with them and share them on your social medias, and tag us at CUSF Women on Instagram, so we can share them with the rest of the community as well. So moving on from International Women's Day, the CUSF is looking for volunteers, and we're also looking for board members. So if you're interested, or you know someone that might be well suited for any of those positions, send us an email at submissions@cusf.ca, and we'll take a look at them. And also, last thing for me, I promised, if you are a student at a Canadian university that does not currently have a university club and would like to start one, you can also send us an email at submissions@cusf.ca, and we can help you get one started. That is it for me. Enough rambling. Kelly, on to you for Maple Seed, please.
Sure. So we have a lot of people that are reaching us to see about our calendar. We're currently confirming locations across the country, and we'll be posting dates on our calendar. Go to mapleseedrifleman.com, and you can see our calendar of events there. Going to be an exciting year for 2025. I'm even going to be going to BC this year, it looks like, and doing ladies' days out there. So I'll see you, Rahina, out there. So yeah,
let me know. I'd love to see you.
Awesome. What about you, Deneen? What's Lady Guns up to?
There's same thing. Everything's kind of heating up in a lot of ladies events, and as mentioned before, working with Lonnie's group, trying to get the new future law enforcement members some range days. So working on that, and hopefully going to see another somewhat regular ladies' night in the Calgary area. Other than that, I personally am working on my shooting so that I can get back into competition this year. So, awesome. So that's not really a Lady Guns thing. That's a Deneen's Guns thing, but that's kind of what I'm working on as well. So I did give a bunch of ladies opportunities to call me, and it looks like I'll be. They won some prizes at some events over the fall, and they're going to be going out with me and taking some shotgun lessons. So I'm excited about that. So yeah, the season, the weather, everything, everybody's getting excited to get out and put some lead in the air.
That's cool.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ready for some warm weather over here.
Mm.
Okay, so once again, thank you so much, Julie. Thank you so much to our hosts for today. And I will wrap it up. So thank you to our sponsors, Cabela's Canada Outdoor Fund, Beretta, Vortex, and Canada First Ammo. If you liked our episode and would like, oh my God, let me start that again. If you like today's episode, please leave us a like and follow us so you don't miss out on any of our episodes. You can watch us on YouTube or Facebook, or you can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and iHeartRadio. If you liked our message and would like to learn more about our programs, check out our websites at cusf.ca, ladyguns.ca, and mapleseed.rifleman.com. To support us and get some additional perks, check out our membership programs. Thank you all for tuning into the She Shoots podcast, Season 4, Episode 38, Living Life Fully Loaded. Make sure to join us on April 8th for the next episode of She Shoots. And it'll be at our regular time, 5 p.m. PST, 6 p.m. MST, 8 p.m. EST. We know the drill here, people. So keep an eye on our social media pages for the next episode announcements. So thank you, everyone, and have a good night.
Night, everybody.
Bye.